August 15, 1943. 22,000 feet above the turquoise waters off Bougainville's western coast. The morning sun glints off the twin booms of Captain Thomas Lynch's P-38 Lightning as he banks hard left, scanning the horizon through a canopy streaked with condensation. The Allison engines roar in symphony, a sound that's become as familiar as his own heartbeat during these long patrols over the Solomon Islands. "Bandits, 11 o'clock low," crackles the voice of Lieutenant Richard Smith through the radio static. "Count 6, no, 8 zeros, escorting a trio of Betty bombers." Lynch's pulse quickens. He can see them now, the distinctive silhouettes of Mitsubishi A-6M fighters weaving protectively around the twin-engine bombers headed south toward Allied positions on Guadalcanal. The Japanese formation maintains tight discipline, their pilots confident after 2 years of air superiority across the Pacific. In the Zero cockpits below, Warrant Officer Takeshi Nakamura sneers at the approaching American fighters. He's heard the dismissive talk in the ready rooms at Rabaul, the fork-tailed devil, they call it. But his fellow pilots laugh. Too heavy, too cumbersome. The Zero's legendary maneuverability will make short work of these ungainly machines with their bizarre twin fuselage design. Lynch doesn't waste time on radio chatter. He pushes the control yoke forward, diving from altitude with his wingman tucked in tight. The P-38 accelerates like a falling anvil, the airspeed indicator needle climbing past 350 knots. This is what the Lightning was built for, using superior speed and energy to dictate the terms of engagement. The Zeros see them coming. Nakamura brakes hard right, pulling his lightweight fighter into a climbing turn that would tear the wings off lesser aircraft. 2 of his squadron mates follow, confident they'll loop behind these American intruders and riddle them with 20 cannon fire. But Lynch isn't turning with them. That's the Zero pilot's game, and he won't play it. Instead, he levels out below the bombers, his finger hovering over the trigger. 4.50 caliber machine guns and a single 20 cannon are clustered in the P-38's nose. No wing-mounted guns means no convergence issues, every round following the same trajectory. The lead Betty bomber swells in his gun sight. Lynch squeezes the trigger. The P-38 shudders as tracers lance forward, walking across the bomber's wing route. Fuel vapor erupts from punctured tanks, then flame. The Betty, notorious for its lack of armor and self-sealing fuel tanks, transforms into a fireball at 18,000 feet. "Splash 1!" Smith's voice carries raw excitement. Nakamura watches in disbelief as the bomber tumbles from the sky. He reverses his turn, trying to pursue the American fighter, but the P-38 is already accelerating away, using the energy from its dive to escape before the Zeros can close the distance. This isn't how it's supposed to happen. The Zero owns these skies. Lynch climbs back to altitude, his engines pulling him up faster than the lightweight Zeros can follow while hauling their external fuel tanks. He rolls inverted, spotting another Betty below. The second dive is textbook. Build speed, line up the shot, fire in short controlled bursts, then extend away before the escorts can respond. The second bomber sheds pieces of its starboard engine cowling, propeller windmilling uselessly as the pilot struggles to maintain control. It won't make it back to Rabaul. The crew will ditch in the ocean if they're lucky. Smith tangles with a persistent Zero, but he doesn't dogfight. He uses the P-38's superior high-speed handling, rolling and diving in ways that would cause compressibility problems in other fighters. The Zero pilot tries to follow, pulling harder, turning tighter, but he's fighting yesterday's war. Smith extends away, then loops back with an altitude advantage, catching the Zero in a climbing scissors maneuver. A 2-second burst from his concentrated nose armament sends the Japanese fighter down, trailing smoke. The remaining Zeros break off, low on fuel and shaken. The final Betty jettisons its bombs into the empty ocean and runs for home. As Lynch points his Lightning northwest toward base, he keys his radio. "Devil Flight, form up. Let's go home." Below, Nakamura nurses his Zero back toward Rabaul, his fuel gauge showing critically low. He's witnessed something that contradicts everything he's been told. The fork-tailed fighter isn't clumsy. It doesn't dogfight. It doesn't need to. It kills from superior speed and altitude, concentrating devastating firepower in seconds before vanishing back into the sun. In the debriefing room at Rabaul, Nakamura's report is met with skepticism from senior officers, but the pilots who survived the encounter know the truth. The rules of engagement are changing over the Solomons, and the change is painted in the distinctive silhouette of twin booms and a central nacelle. September 12, 1943. 0400 hours at Bomber Strip 2, Guadalcanal. The pre-dawn darkness pulses with the sound of Allison engines warming up. 12 P-38. Lightnings preparing for a mission that will stretch their range to the absolute limit. Major Edward "Porky" Cragg walks the flight line, checking in with each pilot, his breath visible in the cool tropical morning. "Fuel status?" he asks Lieutenant Robert Westbrook, who's performing his pre-flight inspection by flashlight. "Topped off, plus a 150-gallon drop tank under each wing," Westbrook replies, patting the external fuel tank like it's a good luck charm. "Still gonna be tight making it back." The target is Rabaul Harbor, 250 miles to the northwest. The beating heart of Japanese operations in the South Pacific. Intelligence reports indicate a major convoy arrived yesterday. Troop transports, cargo vessels, and destroyer escorts packed into Simpson Harbor like sardines. If the convoy completes unloading, those supplies will sustain Japanese forces across the Solomons for months. Cragg climbs into his cockpit as the first hint of gray light touches the eastern horizon. The mission is simple in concept, suicidal in execution. Fly low over the water to avoid radar detection. Hit the convoy at dawn when fighters are still being fueled, and race home before the entire Japanese Air Force at Rabaul can respond. The Lightnings lift off in pairs, their twin engines glowing orange in the darkness. They form up over Iron Bottom Sound, that graveyard of ships from a dozen night battles, then set course northwest. Cragg keeps them at 500 feet above the wavetops, low enough that the salt spray leaves a faint mist on his canopy. You can feel the tension in formations like this. 12 aircraft, 24 engines, all betting their lives that intelligence is accurate and timing is perfect. One navigational error, one early rising Zero patrol, and this mission becomes a death trap. 2 hours into the flight, the volcanic peaks of New Britain emerge from the morning haze. Rabaul sits in the caldera of an ancient volcano, its harbor one of the finest natural anchorages in the Pacific. It's also the most heavily defended position in the Japanese Empire outside the home islands. "Tally Harbor," Cragg transmits. "Weapons hot, attack pattern Charlie." The P-38S spread into a loose line abreast formation, screaming across the water at 300 knots. Simpson Harbor opens before them like a treasure chest of targets. 6 transport vessels, 2 cargo ships, 4 destroyers, and dozens of smaller craft. Barely 100 yards separate the American fighters from the mastheads of the anchored fleet. Cragg selects his target, a 10,000-ton transport still heavy with supplies, and begins firing at point-blank range. The P-38's concentrated nose armament rakes the ship's waterline, punching through thin hull plating. He walks his fire upward, shattering bridge windows and shredding crew quarters. Westbrook targets a destroyer escort attempting to get underway. The ship's anti-aircraft guns traverse frantically, but he's too low, too fast. His 20 cannon tears into the destroyer's forward magazine. The explosion lifts the bow clear of the water, breaking the ship's back. Chaos erupts across the harbor. Sailors dive overboard. Ammunition explodes. A cargo ship loaded with aviation fuel transforms into a pillar of flame that climbs 1,000 feet into the morning sky, the shockwave rattling the P-38s even as they race past. But the hornet's nest is now wide awake. Anti-aircraft batteries on shore open up, filling the air with tracers. Machine gun fire from ships stitches patterns across the water. A P-38 flown by Lieutenant Charles King takes hits in the port engine and boom. He feathers the damaged prop and climbs away, trailing smoke. "King's hit!" someone shouts over the radio. "I can make it," King's voice comes back, strained but controlled. The P-38's twin-engine design is proving its worth. He still has power, still has control. The Lightnings make a second pass, this time targeting smaller vessels attempting to flee the harbor. Cragg destroys a fuel barge, sending diesel flames spreading across the water. Westbrook strafes a beached transport, ensuring it will never sail again. Then they're gone, thundering out of the harbor and back across the water before Japanese fighters can intercept. Behind them, Simpson Harbor burns. 3 ships are sinking, 2 more ablaze, and the destroyer escort is already on the bottom. As the P-38s climb to cruising altitude for the long flight home, Cragg takes stock. 1 aircraft damaged but flyable, no losses, and Raboul's ability to supply forward positions has been dealt a significant blow. King nurses his wounded Lightning back to Guadalcanal, the port engine windmilling uselessly. He touches down with fuel gauges reading empty, coasting to a stop at the end of the runway. When he climbs out, he counts 47 holes in his aircraft. "Tough bird," he says to the ground crew chief. "Tough pilot," the chief replies. October 18, 1943. The operations tent at Bomber Strip 2 feels like a furnace at midday, but the intelligence officer's briefing sends a different kind of heat through the assembled pilots. Major Cragg stands at the front, studying a map of the Bismarck Sea dotted with red marks indicating Japanese shipping routes. "Gentlemen, we've cracked their convoy codes," the intelligence officer announces, tapping a route line from Raboul toward Buka. "A major reinforcement convoy departs tonight. 8 transports carrying an entire infantry regiment plus ammunition, food, and medical supplies. 4 destroyer escorts." Lieutenant Lynch leans forward, his interest piqued. After 2 months of hunting Japanese shipping, he's developed an instinct for profitable targets. An entire regiment means thousands of troops that won't reinforce positions on Bougainville, ammunition that won't be fired at advancing Marines. "When do we hit them?" Lynch asks. "Dawn, October 19th. They'll be here." The intelligence officer marks a position 60 miles southeast of Raboul. In open water, out of land-based anti-aircraft range, too far from their fighter umbrella for extended combat air patrol. Captain Richard Bong, the quiet farm boy from Wisconsin, whose kill count is already becoming legendary, speaks up. "What about escort fighters?" "Expect zeros based on float fighters from Raboul, but limited numbers due to fuel constraints. Weather forecast shows low cloud cover at 3,000 feet. We can use that." The mission brief continues for another hour, covering approach vectors, fuel management, and emergency bailout procedures. This isn't a quick strike and run. This is a sustained attack against a convoy that will be fighting for survival. That evening, Lynch walks the beach near the airstrip, watching the sun sink into the slot. He thinks about the Japanese soldiers aboard those transports, probably dealing cards and writing letters home, unaware that American codebreakers have sentenced them to death. War strips away the luxury of sympathy. Those soldiers, if they reach Bougainville, will kill his fellow Americans. The calculus is simple. October 19, 1943. 0530 hours. 16. P-38. Lightnings lift through the pre-dawn darkness, climbing to 12,000 feet before setting course northwest. Lynch checks his fuel flow, engine temperatures, and oxygen supply. Everything reads normal. Around him, the formation maintains loose integrity, each pilot lost in private thoughts. The sun rises behind them, painting the scattered clouds in shades of orange and gold. Beautiful, if you can forget you're flying toward violence. Tally-ho, 10 o'clock, low. Bong's calm voice breaks radio silence. Multiple ships in convoy formation. Lynch spots them. 8 vessels arranged in 2 columns, gray silhouettes cutting white wakes through dark blue water. The destroyer escorts patrol the perimeter, watching for submarines. They haven't looked up yet. Craig's voice crackles through the headset. Devil and Angel flights, take the transports, night flight, suppress the destroyers, execute. Lynch pushes into a dive, the P-38 accelerating smoothly. At 8,000 feet, he levels out, approaching from the convoy's starboard quarter. The first transport is a sitting duck, maybe 400 feet long, packed with men and materiel. Incapable of evasive maneuvers, his concentrated firepower tears into the ship's superstructure. Bullets shatter windows, penetrate fuel bunkers, find ammunition stores. Secondary explosions ripple along the transport's deck. Men pour out of hatches, some on fire, others leaping overboard to escape the inferno. Westbrook attacks the second transport, his cannons punching holes along the waterline. Water rushes in. The ship begins listing even as its crew attempts damage control. The destroyer escorts open fire, their anti-aircraft guns throwing up walls of flak. Black puffs of explosive shells bloom at 7,000 feet, then 6,000, then 5,000, as the gunners adjust their aim. A P-38 flown by Lieutenant Morrison takes shrapnel in the starboard boom, losing hydraulic pressure, but maintains formation. Then the Japanese fighters arrive, 6 Zeros dropping through the cloud layer, their pilots eager to avenge the helpless convoy. But they're outnumbered and outpositioned. Bong bounces the lead Zero before it can make a single pass. His deflection shot perfect. The Zero trails fire and cartwheels into the ocean. Lynch completes his attack run and climbs back through the clouds, his Lightning's superior speed creating separation from pursuing Zeros. He loops back around, emerging from cloud cover with altitude and energy advantage, and dives on another transport already burning from Craig's initial pass. The battle becomes a methodical execution. The P-38s work in pairs, one attacking while the other provides top cover. The Zeros try to interfere, but they're designed for dogfighting, not protecting slow-moving ships from slashing hit-and-run attacks. By 0615, 3 transports are sinking, 2 more dead in the water and burning. The convoy breaks formation, each ship attempting individual escape. It's futile. The Lightnings hunt them down one by one. A Japanese destroyer makes a desperate run, trying to close distance and bring its guns to bear. Craig and Bong attack simultaneously from opposite quarters, overwhelming its defensive fire. The destroyer's bridge explodes. The ship circles aimlessly, its steering destroyed. At 0645, Craig orders withdrawal. Fuel states are critical, and Japanese reinforcement fighters will be launching from Rabaul. The P-38s form up and turn southeast, leaving behind a scene of devastation. 6 transports sinking or sunk, 2 destroyers crippled, an entire infantry regiment drowning in the Bismarck Sea. All 16 Lightnings return to base, though Morrison's damaged aircraft requires an emergency landing. As Lynch climbs out of his cockpit, his hands are shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline crash after intense combat. The intelligence officer meets them at debriefing with updated reconnaissance photos. The convoy is completely destroyed. Not a single transport will reach Bougainville. "Gentlemen," he says quietly, "you just changed the campaign." November 2nd, 1943. The Officers' Club at Bomber Strip 2 evening. Captain Bong sits at a corner table writing a letter home to his fiancée Marge. Around him, pilots celebrate another successful mission with contraband whiskey and exaggerated combat stories. But the atmosphere carries an undercurrent of exhaustion. They've been flying 2 missions daily for 3 weeks straight, grinding down Japanese air and naval power through sheer attrition. Lynch drops into the chair across from Bong, his flight suit still damp with sweat. "Intelligence says the Japanese are calling us the fork-tailed devils now. Apparently, we've earned a reputation." "Reputations don't mean much when you're still getting shot at," Bong replies without looking up from his letter. "True. But it means they respect what we're doing. Fear it even. The respect is earned in blood and burning aviation fuel. Over the past 6 weeks, P-38 squadrons have destroyed or damaged over 40 Japanese vessels in the waters around Rabaul and Bougainville. More importantly, they've established air superiority over the convoy routes, strangling Japanese logistics. Garrisons that once received regular supplies now subsist on quarter rations. Ammunition becomes precious. Fuel runs critically low. November 3rd, 1943. 0500 hours briefing. The latest intelligence indicates a desperate Japanese attempt to break the stranglehold. A massive convoy escorted by cruisers and multiple destroyer squadrons, plus a combat air patrol of at least 20 Zero fighters. It's a statement of intent. The convoy will get through, regardless of cost. "They're betting everything on this one," Cragg tells his assembled pilots. "Which means we need to hit them with everything we've got." The mission plan involves coordination with Navy dive bombers and torpedo planes launching from carriers offshore. The P-38S will sweep ahead, engaging the fighter escorts and suppressing anti-aircraft fire from the warships. Once the skies are clear, the Navy bombers will make their attack runs. It's the largest combined operation yet attempted in the Solomons campaign, involving over 80 aircraft converging on a single convoy. The complexity is staggering, the timing critical. Lynch leads his flight of 4 P-38s off the runway at 0600, climbing through scattered clouds into crystalline tropical sky. The formation assembles at 15,000 feet. 32 Lightnings from 3 different squadrons, the largest P-38 strike force yet deployed in the Pacific Theater. "All flights, this is Devil Leader." Cragg's voice carries absolute authority. "Maintain combat spread. Expect heavy fighter opposition. Remember your training." The convoy appears at 0715, a formidable armada, 12 transports protected by 2 cruisers and 8 destroyers. Above them, Zeros weave in combat air patrol patterns, their pilots scanning for threats. The Japanese spot the approaching Americans simultaneously. The Zero combat air patrol climbs to intercept, while the ships below open fire with every anti-aircraft gun available, filling the sky with tracers and flak bursts. Cragg doesn't hesitate. "All flights, engage fighters. Clear the sky." The aerial battle that follows is the largest air engagement yet fought over the Solomons. 32 P-38s versus 24 Zeros, all swirling in a 3-dimensional furball from 18,000 feet down to wave-top level. Lynch latches onto a Zero, attempting to dive on a friendly P-38. He leads the target perfectly, firing a 2-second burst. The Zero's wing root disintegrates. The aircraft snap rolls inverted and plunges into the ocean. Bong fights with calculated precision, using altitude and energy management to position himself above the fight. He picks off targets methodically, a Zero climbing too steeply, another fixated on a friendly and ignoring his 6 o'clock. 4 kills in 12 minutes. His running tally climbs toward ace status, but the Japanese pilots aren't pushovers. They're experienced veterans fighting to protect a vital convoy. A Zero gets behind Lieutenant Peterson's P-38, hammering it with 20 cannon fire. Peterson's port engine explodes. He manages to level the aircraft and points it southeast toward friendly territory, but he's trailing smoke and losing altitude. "I'm hit bad." Peterson's voice is tight with pain. "Gonna try to make it to the beach." Lynch breaks from the engagement to escort Peterson, scanning constantly for threats. The damaged P-38 shudders and bucks, barely maintaining 180 knots. They limp southward while behind them the battle rages. Meanwhile, Navy dive bombers arrive overhead, their SPD Dauntlesses pushing into steep dives toward the convoy below. With most of the Zero Combat Air Patrol engaged with P-38s, the bombers face reduced fighter opposition. They press home their attacks with devastating effect. A 1,000-pound bomb strikes a transport amidships, breaking its keel. The vessel folds like a closing book and sinks in less than 2 minutes. Another bomb detonates alongside a cruiser, blowing a 40-foot hole in its hull. The cruiser loses speed, settling lower in the water. Torpedo planes race in at masthead height, their TBF Avengers threading between destroyer escorts to launch torpedoes at the larger transports. White wakes streak through blue water. Explosions erupt below the waterline. Ships list, capsize, break apart. The convoy's defensive formation disintegrates into chaos. Burning ships collide with vessels attempting evasive maneuvers. A destroyer runs aground on a reef while dodging a torpedo. Another takes a bomb on its stern, wrecking its rudder and leaving it circling uselessly. By 0800, the battle is effectively over. The Japanese Combat Air Patrol has been decimated. 16 Zeros destroyed for the loss of 3 P-38s and 2 Navy fighters. Below, the convoy is annihilated. 9 transports sinking, 2 cruisers heavily damaged, 4 destroyers out of action. Peterson manages to ditch his crippled P-38 in shallow water off a small island. Lynch circles overhead until he sees the pilot climb out onto the wing, waving. A Catalina flying boat will retrieve him by evening. As the surviving aircraft return to base, the significance of the engagement becomes clear. This was Japan's maximum effort to resupply their forces, and it failed catastrophically. There will be no more large convoys, no more decisive attempts to break the blockade. At debriefing, the intelligence officer updates the tally board. 73 Japanese vessels destroyed or damaged in the past 8 weeks. The supply line to Rabaul and Bougainville is effectively severed. Bong lights a cigarette outside the debriefing tent, watching the sun set over Iron Bottom Sound. Lynch joins him. "We're winning," Lynch says quietly. "We're surviving," Bong corrects. "There's a difference." December 17th, 1943. Fighter Operations Office, Bomber Strip 2. Major Cragg studies reconnaissance photographs spread across his desk, images of Rabaul Harbor taken just hours earlier. What he sees tells the story of a dying garrison. Cargo ships beached and stripped for parts, destroyers cannibalized to keep a handful running, fuel dumps depleted, aircraft dispersal areas showing half the parking spots empty. "They're starving," the intelligence officer observes. "Radio intercepts indicate severe food shortages. Their pilots are being restricted to essential missions only due to fuel constraints." Cragg nods slowly. 3 months ago, Rabaul was the most formidable Japanese base in the South Pacific. Today, it's being strangled into irrelevance, and the P-38 Lightning is the weapon tightening the noose. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It accumulated through hundreds of individual missions, convoy attacks, fighter sweeps, anti-shipping strikes. Each transport sent to the bottom meant fewer bullets for Japanese infantry, less fuel for their aircraft, reduced rations for their sailors. The P-38's combination of long-range, heavy firepower, and superior speed created a weapon system perfectly designed for this kind of campaign. Lieutenant Lynch enters the office, his flight suit crisp despite the morning humidity. He's been promoted to flight commander after his consistent performance during the convoy battles. "Sir, we're ready for the morning patrol." "Change of mission," Cragg says. Intelligence indicates a small convoy attempting a night run from Truk to Rabaul. 4 cargo vessels, minimal escort. They're desperate enough to risk daylight arrival. "When do we launch?" 30 minutes. Take your flight and bongs. Find them, sink them. The mission is almost routine now. Lift off, navigate to the intercept point. Destroy the convoy, return to base. What once seemed impossible has become standard operating procedure. 8 P-38s launch into clear morning sky, forming up over the field before setting course northwest. Lynch leads from the front left position, Bong on his right wing. The formation is relaxed, confident. These pilots have survived months of intensive combat. They know their aircraft, trust their wingmen, understand the enemy's capabilities and limitations. At 0830, they spot the convoy. 4 tired freighters pushing through moderate seas, escorted by a single destroyer. No air cover visible. The Japanese have run out of fighters to spare for convoy protection. "Almost feels unfair," Westbrook comments over the radio. "Save your sympathy," Lynch replies. "Those ships carry bullets meant for Marines." The attack is clinical. Lynch and Bong make the first pass, their concentrated firepower shredding the lead freighter's bridge and engine room. The ship loses way, wallowing in the swells. Westbrook's flight attacks from the opposite quarter, targeting the remaining vessels in sequence. The lone destroyer attempts to defend the convoy, its anti-aircraft guns firing frantically. But 8 P-38s attacking from multiple vectors overwhelm its defensive capabilities. Bong silences the destroyer's forward gun mount with a precision burst, then climbs away untouched. Within 15 minutes, all 4 freighters are burning. The destroyer, recognizing the futility of continued resistance, makes smoke and runs for Rabaul at flank speed. Lynch considers pursuing, but checks his fuel state and decides against it. The mission is accomplished. The flight returns to Guadalcanal by mid-morning, touching down to a routine debriefing. 4 more ships scratched from Japanese inventory. The logistics stranglehold tightens another notch. That afternoon, Cragg gathers his senior pilots in the operations tent. "Gentlemen, I wanted you to hear this directly. Intelligence assessment concludes that Japanese logistics capacity in the Solomons has been effectively destroyed. They can no longer sustain major operations. Rabaul will be bypassed rather than assaulted. Bougainville is cut off." The words hang in the humid air. Bypassed, cut off. Strategic terms that translate to victory achieved without massive amphibious assault, without tens of thousands of casualties. The P-38's war of attrition against Japanese shipping has accomplished what a direct assault might have cost dearly. "What's next for us?" Lynch asks. "We continue patrols, maintain air superiority, prevent any resupply attempts. But the critical phase is over. We won." That evening, Lynch stands on the beach watching the sun descend into the slot, that narrow waterway where so many ships found their graves. He thinks about the Japanese pilots, who initially mocked the P-38's unconventional design, who believed their nimble Zeros would sweep these fork-tailed devils from the sky. They learned the hard way that dogfighting agility matters less than speed, firepower, and range when your mission is destroying shipping and controlling airspace. The P-38 proved perfect for this theater, twin engines providing reliability over vast ocean distances, concentrated nose armament delivering devastating firepower, turbo-supercharged engines maintaining performance at altitude. What looked awkward on the drawing board became elegant in practice. Bong joins him on the beach, hands in pockets, his quiet demeanor unchanged despite 21 confirmed kills. "Thinking about home?" he asks. "Thinking about what we accomplished," Lynch replies. "We broke them without most people back home even knowing this campaign existed. That's how wars are won. Not with single dramatic battles, but through sustained pressure, grinding down the enemy's ability to resist." They stand in comfortable silence, watching night fall over the Pacific. Behind them, ground crews service the P-38s for tomorrow's missions. The war continues, but here in the Solomons, the outcome is no longer in doubt. December 31st, 1943. The final mission of the year is a fighter sweep over Rabaul, a show of force demonstrating Allied air superiority. 16 P-38s fly directly over Simpson Harbor at 20,000 feet, unchallenged. Japanese anti-aircraft batteries remain silent, either out of ammunition or unwilling to reveal positions. No fighters rise to intercept. Lynch looks down at the once mighty base, now reduced to impotence by the sustained air campaign. Wrecked ships litter the harbor. Burned-out aircraft dot the airfields. The fork-tailed devils own these skies. The formation turns southeast, heading home through scattered clouds painted gold by the setting sun of 1943. Behind them, Rabaul withers into strategic irrelevance, a fortress bypassed and forgotten. In the months ahead, the P-38 will continue its war across the Pacific, escorting bombers, strafing ground targets, hunting enemy fighters. But here, in the crucible of the Solomons during late 1943, it proved its worth beyond doubt. The aircraft that Japanese pilots once mocked became the weapon that severed their lifelines and turned the tide of the island campaign. As Lynch brings his Lightning in for landing at Bomber Strip 2, he keys his radio one final time. "Devil Flight, welcome home." The P-38s touch down one by one, twin booms and central nacelles silhouetted against the tropical twilight. Tomorrow they'll fly again, but tonight they've earned their rest. The fork-tailed devils that ruined Japan's convoys and won command of the sky. The end,